Okay.
Hello, this is Jim Feist in Las Vegas, and today I have a person that you can't call him a newcomer, maybe a newcomer to this show, but not a newcomer to the business. Joe Mac from New York has worked for SportsEye, if you guys out there remember SportsEye, SportsReporter, which is still in business, and Jim Hurley's network, which is also still in business. Joe Mac, welcome aboard, Joe. Good morning.
Good morning, Jim. It's great to be with you.
It's great to have you on. I've followed you over the years. I know you really know what you're doing. Let's get started with New York. New York, of course, the sister right next door is New Jersey, who was really the leader in getting the gambling ban overturned. And it looks like, according to what I can see, New Jersey is going to be taking bets within a matter of days. And it looks like the state of Delaware could actually beat them to taking the first bet because they are set up because of the situation they had before. So they're in pretty good shape as well. So you got Delaware and New Jersey are probably first out of the box. You have any idea what New York's going to do?
Well, Jim, from what I'm hearing, New York's a little bit behind the first wave of those states. You just mentioned a couple of them. There's a couple others out there. I'm not sure if Virginia was one of them, but there's 3 or 4 states that are kind of out in the lead right now. As you and I talked off the air a bit about Monmouth Park in Jersey, I know earlier this month of May they were talking about having sports betting at their track, a beautiful track at Monmouth Park, by this weekend, this Memorial Day weekend. It looks like it's going to take them a few more days, but they're in the lead, and New York's a little bit behind. You have to understand, New Jersey was this was something that was important to then Governor Chris Christie. That was one of the things that he was pushing for a long time, legalize sports gambling in his state. Obviously, he's not the governor there anymore, but they carried on, and they're bound and determined to get it going soon. New York is going to be a little behind. My guess is that by football season 2019, I think they'll be up and running. Now, there's a couple of new casinos being built throughout New York State. One is up in the Catskills, which is an old, they're trying to revive the area. It used to be a summer haven for especially New York City people on vacation. They built a beautiful casino there, and obviously they're going to look for sports gambling out of that building. They've got set up a casino at Aqueduct, which is in the south part of Queens, New York, about 20 minutes from New York City. They're going to be ready to roll eventually with legalized sports gambling. So New York's going to be there. They're going to be a little bit behind the early goers, the front runners like New Jersey and Delaware, but it's going to be there. I don't know how big effect it's going to have on the whole industry. You're certainly going to get people that are going to be happy they can go up to a window and place their bets, as they say. But as you and I had discussed a little bit off the air, a lot of folks that I know that are hardcore guys, everyday Eddies, whatever you want to call them, they're not going to be affected that much. So, I'm waiting to see how it all pans out and what kind of effect it's going to have. But New York will be there. They're going to be a little late to the party, but they'll be there eventually.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. Of course, Albany has to pass whatever laws they have to pass to get it through, and then the tax issues in each state's going to be an issue. But it's going to take, I believe, 2, 3, 5 years for this to roll out across the country. But over time, I think it's going to have an impact because there's going to be a lot of people out there that don't bet regularly that's going to say, well, it's legal, it's not so bad to do, maybe I'll make a few bets. They might go to the local bookie, they might go offshore, they might go to the places like Monmouth, but some of these places are also going to have apps on their phones and phone wagering. I imagine that will take place. It happens in Nevada, so I figure they're going to follow that model. And over a 5-year period, I think it'll have a tremendous impact. Right now, I think it's going to be slow out the box. But, I'm excited about it. One thing I want to bring up, the one thing that we don't really talk about too much, there's a lot more talk on not only the internet, but on TV, ESPN, on blogs and radio shows. A lot of people are talking about point spreads, covering numbers, over and under totals. And now because it's legal, the networks aren't stopping them. And they're talking about that's going to bring more impetus to the person out there that isn't betting to say, hey, now it's okay to do. Let's go do something. Maybe they're $5, $10 bettors. I don't think it's going to affect the big bettors. I think they're going to find another way to bet.
I agree with you 100%, Jim. I think what you're going to have, and I equate it a little bit to like the state lotteries, like in New York State, if I want to turn around and go to my corner grocery store, convenience store, every night of the week you can bet something, whether it's Mega Millions or Powerball or the lottery or Cash for Life. Every night you have something. And I think that's what's going to happen with a lot of smaller players. Like you say, folks that are looking to put $20 something, they're going to be able to have their action, as you say, legal, and they're not going to need a bookie. And as you pointed out, the world is changing so much with phone apps and, ability to place wagers. You don't have to be at the locale or whatever. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a slow process, but I think you're going to see a lot of folks that, jump in there and make smaller plays. I'm sure for the NBA tournament, I'm sure for the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, things are going to increase tenfold and whatnot. But I think you're going to see it, but we're not going to really be able to measure how powerful the whole scene is of legalized sports gambling in these states, outside Nevada. You're not going to see it for a while. It's going to take a little bit of a time to see how it goes. And let's face it, folks are going to have to adjust. You're going to have some folks, let's face it, we know the deal. We've both been around for a long time seeing it. You're going to have some guys and gals out there, they're going to make their first couple of bets, legalized betting either on their phone or at a casino. They're going to win. They're going to be back at it. You're going to have some other people who, maybe on a weekend they play 2 baseball games, they lose them both. That's it. They're going to shut it down. So it's all going to depend on the individual. I agree it's going to take a little while for everything to get settled in. But one thing you've got to, that folks, know from all over, all these states, they've been, they've had contingency plans. They've had plans that they know, hey, listen, when and if this day comes, when the Supreme Court rules in the favor of legalized gambling, they're not just going to be caught off guard. They've all got plans in place. So I guess, say, in 2, 3, 5 years, I really think in a lot of these states where they've been chomping at the bit to get it, I think it's going to be a little quicker. I think it's going to be 1.5 to 2 years, and we might see a lot more action. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to see. Again, I don't know how much it's going to affect guys and gals that we know that have been playing for years. I played for a majority of my life, online playing and stuff. So I don't know if I'm going to change. But anyway, we're going to see how it all pans out. And it's definitely going to bring a lot of new people to the table. But again, you're going to have some people that come out, and if they're losing $100 the first weekend, that's it. The whole legalized gambling is not going to matter to them. They'll go back into the closet.
I totally agree, Joe. Another factor that people haven't really been talking about very much, a couple guys have, Mark Cuban to be one, Phil Hellmuth another, myself. We all believe that poker is going to follow in line with this, because the gambling bill really does say, hey, if you can do sports betting, what about poker? Poker is more of a game of skill anyway, and it was rampant until Black Friday about 7 years ago, and I believe poker is going to come back in a big way. Online poker is going to be another source of revenue for these states. Already the World Series of Poker has a site, and there's a few states involved in that, Nevada, New Jersey, and Delaware. I think they're all in that mix, and so I think we're going to find that as well. So I think basically you're going to see a lot of these prohibitions fall by the wayside, just like we have with marijuana and with alcohol years ago. So I'm excited about it. It's been too long to happen. I think we got tied up with a lot of different legal mumbo jumbo, but I'm glad it's here. You're getting to the more current stuff. Last night we saw LeBron James, who is an unbelievable basketball player, unbelievable guy. He's very intelligent. He never gets in any trouble off the court. He's a solid citizen. Some people don't like some of the things he did years ago, and he went to Miami and taken my talent to Miami, South Beach, and everything. But be that as it may, this guy's been around 15 years. He's one game away from reaching the finals for the 8th consecutive time. No one's ever done that. That's unbelievable. The guy pours in 46 last night. Kevin Love gets hurt very early. He's their second leading scorer, and he might miss the rest of the tournament totally. You don't know if he gets into concussion protocol. And they play again tomorrow. Today, of course, we have another injury-riddled situation with Iguodala questionable for Golden State, and we have, Chris Paul out for at least Game 6 for Houston. How do you see these games with all these injuries, and we're heading to Game 6 in one effect tonight and Game 7 tomorrow?
Right. It's funny how it all turned out. When you think about it, the Celtics started off the year, and within the first 5 minutes, Gordon Hayward, who was a free agent signee, he busted up his knee out for the year. You had Kyrie Irving get hurt sometime in March. He's been gone for all these playoffs. And yet now, as we sit here, the Celtics are pretty much whole, and you've had all these other teams, getting pounded with bad injuries. I mean, the Chris Paul injury, obviously the biggest one, and we've seen the number go up to, I see 12.5, 13 points, the Warriors' favorite here in Game 6. And Paul is not going to play. And, it's a house money type of game for Houston, obviously, because they get to go home for Game 7. But let's face it, if Chris Paul is 75% or less, after 4 days of rest, I mean, he's got to be 100%. He's got to do what you were just talking about LeBron. LeBron played 46 minutes last night. That's crazy. 46 minutes. And that's what Paul, the Rockets going to need Paul to play in the 40s, 40, 42 minutes. And it remains to be seen if he's going to be able to do that. So that injury obviously has a great impact right here in Game 6. And you touched on the Iguodala injury. I mean, let's face it, this guy is way more valuable than I think any of us realize. Now, maybe within the Bay Area, they realized that he was the glue guy and a very heady player and a solid defensive player. But I'm shocked, really, Jim, that in the last 2 games that Golden State has lost, they have really lost their poise late in games. The shot selection's been a little wild. I know they like to call it now hero ball, guys trying to get through one-on-one isolation, whatever. Iguodala, when he's on the court, they don't play that way. The ball movement is better. The spacing is better. Just the intelligence of their game is there. And, I mean, I'm looking the other night. I mean, they got Curry, Durant, and Thompson, and Draymond Green. And these guys are making mistakes like junior high school guys. So, again, I'm not going to make it all about Iguodala, but he's a very important and still underrated. So when you think about it, this guy was an NBA Finals MVP a couple of years back, and I'm calling him underrated. But his injury has gone under the radar, and it shouldn't have. He's very important. And heck, if he can get out there and give him 18, 20 minutes tonight, I think just mentally that'll be a big boost for the Warriors, who, like I said, are playing a little panicky. There's no way they should lose this game as a 12.5 point favorite, but they have really displayed a lot of negative vibes out there on the court, which has surprised me. Maybe the appearance of Iguodala will help turn that beat around.
I totally agree. Iguodala, he gets lost in the mix when you have those 3 superstars on the team, and with the multiple championships and everything. You don't hear much about him, but he does a lot, and he shuts down. He's usually on the tough scorer for the other side. He plays strong defense. He balances the offense. He moves. He's setting picks and screens, and he does a lot that they don't seem to be able to replace. And they turned the ball over more than they had assists in the last 2 games. 16 times per game in the last 2 games, they turnovers. That is unbelievable. That is like a high school team. So you get all these superstar scorers, and they don't seem to know what to do without that glue factor out there. This is their game to win. There's no question about it. They're going back home. The other team's without Chris Paul. But I don't want to say that Chris Paul, you can't win without Chris Paul. Here's what Eric Gordon has been playing magnificent basketball. And, I mean, Harden has sort of disappeared, at least from 3-point range. He's missed 20 in a row, which is unbelievable, but he's still a force on the floor. That's a good basketball team that the Rockets have. But the Warriors are the better team, if they stop turning the ball over and play a little bit more defense with Iguodala, could make a lot happen. That's a better team. But laying 12, 13 points, whatever it is, that's an awful big number against a good club, a really good club. Won 65 games this year. I just think that number is way too public for me. I can't lay it. I'm not suggesting taking it, but I can't lay it. I will not follow that bet.
Right. I'll tell you what, just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, Jim, I'll tell you one thing that, I know it's amazed the TNT guys after the game. I watch all the post-game stuff. Where does this Houston defense come from? They're really playing great perimeter defense. I mean, they're really challenging guys. And we talked about the turnovers, and you're exactly right. The Warriors have been just so sloppy and really so many mental mistakes and bad passes. But one thing with Iguodala not on the floor, what I've seen anyway, is that they're asking Draymond Green, who, is a jack of all trades. I mean, he's a total loudmouth, and all his technicals are a problem every postseason, it seems like, for the Warriors. But they're asking him to do a little bit more with the ball. And we saw the other night, all right, he hit a big three-point shot that cut a 4-point deficit down to 1 inside the last minute or so. But he's been, the turnover at the end of the game, some of the silly passes he's made, I think that's, they put a little bit too much on his plate. And, so again, Iguodala's presence could have, but getting back to the number itself here on this game, the Rockets have played very good defense. They pounded guys out on the perimeter, and you touched on it. Eric Gordon has really been superb, and Tucker's rebounding has been monstrous for Houston. I mean, they're not giving up a lot of second-chance shots and whatnot. I mean, how many times have we seen over the years where the Warriors might miss a shot and it gets tapped back out, and another guy takes a 25-footer and he hits it? I mean, it's demoralizing, those second-chance three-point shots, and the Rockets are not allowing that very much. And so hats off to them. I mean, I did not think a Mike D'Antoni team could play defense like this, but they have really impressed me. So I have to give them some of the credit. I agree with you. The number looks monstrous here. But the only problem is you say to yourself, what happens if we get a first quarter where it's, 36-18 at the end of the quarter? Are the Rockets going to make a run, or are they just going to wave the white flag? In other words, I could see this being a 120-95 final tonight. It's possible it could happen if they get in the hole early. So not a real attractive wagering game. And, one other thing to keep in mind, it's funny, we talk about the Cavaliers, we talk about the Warriors. They're combined, I believe I saw it, 14 and 17 against the number in the postseason. And when you think about it, okay, they've got to lay some big numbers at times. The Cavaliers lay road points all the time in the East. But it's amazing. I mean, you think those are the quality teams, and meanwhile, if you've been plunking, $100 a pop on those teams, you're down. So, they're 14 and 17 in the postseason. It's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and when you look at the Cavaliers as a favorite this year, they've been absolutely a disaster. But regular season basketball and playoff basketball are two different things. There's almost, when you take half the teams to the playoffs, the impetus on winning in the regular season isn't that high. So you really get to see who these teams are when they get into the playoffs. And like you said, Houston is playing very good defense. They're good. They got a lot of talent on that team. But in the regular season, maybe they weren't so interested. They just win. They blow up a lot of points. They shoot a lot of threes, and it's a lot of fun. They know they're good. They win 65 games. They shouldn't be getting 12 points in any game against anybody. It's crazy. It's an overreaction. I'm not going to bet the favorite or the dog in that game. What I'm going to do is I'm going to watch the game and do some inline betting, live betting, which I do frequently. Right. Actually, I do it every day, so I guess that's frequently. Anyway, tomorrow we go up to Boston, where Boston has not lost a home game yet this year in the playoffs, and they got a bunch of kids on that team, 21, 20 years old, and they're not used to this kind of pressure. Game 7 is really a different animal, and LeBron has been there a lot, and he's done well often in that situation. Now, that is without Love. We don't know with him yet, but the likelihood is he won't play. I'm guessing he won't play. And the other team is pretty healthy comparatively. They haven't had any injuries lately. These other guys have fresh injuries, and the backups, the people, the support group for LeBron, do not show up on the road. But they have a lot of veterans, and they should be showing up on the road because there's really no excuse for it. But the question is, will they actually come to play now that they know one of their other leaders is down? They did yesterday. They played very well. They blew a 16-point lead late and made it close, but they played much better, but they have been doing that at home. Will they do it on the road, or will Boston maintain this unbelievable home series?
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. You pointed out Celtics obviously unbeaten against the spread at home, which is amazing because if you think about it, you remember the first game of these playoffs that the Celtics were in. The Bucks hit a three-pointer at the buzzer to force overtime, and then the Celtics in that game were a 4-point favorite and won by 6 in overtime. So maybe that was an omen that it was going to be a great time for Celtics, playing the Celtics at home. But, they've been undefeated against the number at home. And you know what? They're guys, like you said, they're young guys, and they all haven't been in a spot like that. But you know what? I got to say, I was impressed last night when you consider, again, I'm just throwing numbers out here, but Terry Rozier had 28 points on 16 shots. Jaylen Brown had 27 points on 18 shots. And Tatum, who banged his head against Love in the first 5 minutes, he wound up with 15 points on 13 shots. It was Horford who had a rough night and was a minus 14 when he was on the floor. But I'll tell you what, those guys showed me something on the road last night. I don't think they're going to show a lot of nerves here. Now, whether they play big games, whether they all shoot well, whether the three-point shooting is, yesterday they shot 12 of 28 from the floor. I mean, you're going to tell me right now that the Celtics are going to, get up 25 to 30 three-point shots and hit half of them. I'm going to tell you right now, unless LeBron goes for over 50, the Celtics are going to win and cover that 2-point number. But again, the young guys have not shown a lot of nerves at home, but they have to play as a unit. I know that sounds trite and whatever, but they really need everybody doing their role. They need Marcus Smart playing that tough defense. They need the kid Bain to bang the boards. He had 4 rebounds last night, but there's times that he really affects some shots being taken in the paint area. They need everybody to do their thing, and they need to keep LeBron somewhat under wraps. We don't know what these other Cavalier guys are going to do. Now, George Hill had a nice night, and I guess he credited all to eating tacos before the game, but he said he's going to find a Chipotle when he's in Boston. But, they have to, especially like you said, Jim, if Love doesn't play this game, they have to get a big number scoring game from either Hill or say, Korver. They need to get in the 20s from those guys. I think this game is going to be a tight fit. We haven't had a lot of close games in this. We've had home court prevailing, but let's face it, we've had very little drama game to game in the East. I think we're going to have a game with drama, but the Cavaliers are going to have to cooperate. Hill is going to have to get 20, or Korver's going to have to get 18 to 20. Who knows? Maybe the old Celtic Jeff Green, who had 14 last night, he might need to get a 20-point game. Well, however you slice it, you almost have to look. Listen, LeBron's going to play 45 minutes or so here. He's probably going to score in the 40s. It seems like he does every game. What do these other guys do? And do the Celtic guys hold together and play with the confidence they've been playing with? On one hand, I look at it, Jim, and I say, geez, how do you go against LeBron? He's won his last 5 elimination games in the playoffs. He's almost playing like at a godlike tempo right now. I mean, he's been in the league forever, but this might be his best playoff. How do you look at it one way, you say, wait, they're going to give me 2 points with LeBron James' team? You might want to snap at it. But then again, you got to look at the other side. The Celtics have been the better team this postseason. They've certainly been a great home team. And unless you just don't have confidence in the young guys, Rozier, Brown, Tatum, Smart, if you think that they're going to play to the level that they're capable of, I think the Celtics will win what's going to be a tight Game 7.
Joe, I appreciate everything. You were 100% right. I agree with you 100%. All the fans out there, we run into a time limit. We're at about 25 minutes, so I have to cut off the taping, and we're going to be doing this frequently, Joe, and I really enjoy having you on. You're really a a great guest, and your knowledge goes back a long way and a lot of depth to what you're saying. So I want to thank you and all the people out there for listening in, and we'll talk to you soon.